Haven't done a video for a while, so I thought I'd post one. I've been doing TikTok lives at 8 o'clock p.m. on Monday through Friday. Sometimes I skip because I'm busy. I try not to skip. Sometimes I get as many as 10 to 15 viewers. It's not that many. But what's nice about TikTok Live is at least I get feedback to what I'm saying. For 3 years, I made all these videos. I'm just talking to myself. You certainly can create your own bubble for yourself, right? But, I mean, where am I at with everything? I think I'm in a very good spot. I really like where I've gone philosophically, religiously, politically. I was able to dig down really deep and find the underlying principles of everything that I believe, pretty much. I read a book, most of it, Invariance: The Structure of the Objective World by Robert Nozick, a full professor of philosophy over at Harvard, died in 2000, where the very act of trying to figure out what your premises are is suspected as not a very good idea at some level. If you really read his introduction, he shows you all the attacks that have been made on the idea of trying to build a structure from a rigorous foundation might ultimately be a fruitless process. But I think approximately it's a very good idea. And I'm not really too sure. I have to think about what he's saying, and I have to think more about what I'm thinking and come to an agreement about it. And if you've been watching any of my videos, I guess you know where I'm at with the nature of reality. I think you really need to know your physics, your mathematics, your biology. You really need to know your works of literature, your history. You have to study your science fiction, good science fiction particularly. I learned that Dan Simmons died not that long ago, which came a little bit as a shock to me. I mean, I thought Dan Simmons' Hyperion from 1989 was one of the greatest things I've ever read. What's the thing about artificial intelligence? Dan Simmons kind of answers the question, is there anything worse than the extinction of mankind? And he's like, yeah, we could be tortured by AI gods for 1 trillion years. Oof. Read about the Shrike, the Tree of Pain. It still haunts me thinking about it. Anyway. Yeah, I hold axiomatically, that we exist. It's pretty strong evidence for that one. I think that we understand a lot about the laws of physics, but like we see with cellular autonoma, I think I'm saying that right for once, cellular autonoma, and, other chaotic processes, there can be simple underlying rules that lead to a tremendous complexity, and inside that tremendous complexity you can discover other rules that were generated by these underlying rules. And so they're very likely that's what's going on with our world. There these underlying rules that we don't quite understand yet, we're looking for them, that generate all the rules we do know, the Standard Model, gravity, etc. Free will has been a great one to think about. I've been working on that one for a while. I love Lex Freeman's observation that free will is observational. So I can move my fingers. So I just believe I have free will. I think there's easy that you can define free will in such a way that maybe we don't have it. And you can redefine free will in such a way as that we do have it. But all this always gets back to God and the fact that we're going to die, and whether or not there's a heaven or a hell or anything like that. And, I hold axiomatically that there is a God and there is a judgment. And then when you die, you get judged in some way. God might not do the judging. He might leave it to other people, And can you imagine when you died, everyone who ever lived and died is there, and they judge you collectively, whether or not you get along with everyone or not. It's just, maybe that's just how it is. And, but I don't know. I can't know. And that's one of the most interesting things about this. So there was Kurt Gödel's incompleteness theorem in mathematics from the 1930s. The idea that mathematics is either inconsistent, which is inconceivable to me. It can't be inconsistent. So mathematics has truths that cannot be proven. Just like Alan Turing, has the halting problem. There's some algorithms you cannot know if they ever halt. I think that's a nice way to say it. There's other ways, I mean, to think about it. And so there was a philosophy professor from University of Pennsylvania on YouTube. I'm looking at my television over there, and this philosophy professor from University of Pennsylvania, old YouTube video, talks about Kurt Gödel and says it's only a matter of time before some philosopher finally bridges the gap between that and philosophy in general. There's always going to be true statements that you can say out loud that you neither know the truth or not of. And it's like, and so I've been going on, thinking about a whole bunch of things. So there are truths we cannot know if they're true, but they're true. And any statement that you make that is either true or false, then it goes either way. And then, how to negate universal statements in mathematics and philosophy. I was thinking about this because I went on some other people's TikTok lives, and wow, that was a hard road. Going on other people's TikTok lives, I just kept getting booted. Let me run through some of them. This one kid who calls himself Monkey Boy. He just I said, well, there's axioms. And he was like, what's an axiom? I said, well, kind of axiomatic what an axiom is. And Monkey Boy just booted me. I went on this abortion one where all abortion is evil, sin, crime, biblical. And I was like, well, all abortion is wrong. The opposite of that statement is there exists one abortion that was right. You know what I mean? And I'm sure we all can agree that there's been at least one. There's been many. But, I couldn't get anywhere with those guys. And there was another one that was, there was the reparations guy. I believe in reparations, but that guy wouldn't even let me get close to talking about it. I was just, I suspect that he was just waiting to just chop me down. He couldn't conceive of the idea that I might have a good opinion about it. This is my opinion. I don't know. So that was really hard. But, I think this one thing that I've been ruminating over the past few months before doing this video was the possibility of what would be my YouTube channel, what would be the focus of my philosophy. Again, my philosophy is renovationism. My religion is renovationist Christian. I like the idea because you're trying to, I'm not trying to throw out old thinking systems. I'm trying to find a way to use them, to fix them, to make you proud of them. Everybody, if you're a Muslim kid, be a loyal Muslim. If you're a Catholic, be a loyal Catholic. If you're Jewish, be loyal. Americans should be loyal to America, and Australians should be loyal to Australia. Be loyal to the groups that you find yourself a part of. Be loyal to the groups that you choose. Sometimes other people will be in different groups, and some of the biggest dilemmas that we have in life is that we're part of two different groups, and those two different groups are fighting each other, and we're part of both of them. Tough business, this world. But I was thinking, what would be my shtick? What would be my overall theme? And it's been coming into focus for me. And my overall theme would be that the correct position about everything can be found. It's like, if you focus hard enough, you can develop the correct position about everything. And you could do that approximately now about everything. And so it's sort of like, whenever you hear there was an outcome of a trial, there was a jury, then, you accept that outcome. Don't argue about it. Don't get into the weeds about it unless you really want to, which means that you're going to deeply investigate it, maybe write a book on it, and then render an opinion about how the system was corrupt here or something. But then you can wait for somebody to tell you that, but don't listen to anyone who tells you that until you have strong evidence of some level of impartiality on that person and the fact that they put the work in. That's a critical part. And so, and this goes all the way down the line. It makes life so much easier. How do I think about Israel and Palestine and Iran and all that stuff? There's something I really want to say here, by the way. There's something about Donald Trump I really wanted to say. But the thing is, it's like Congress gets to make the decision of whether or not they fund this or that, or they fund the Israeli military, and they have made that decision to do so. And I was thinking about the mayor of New York. I love that guy. He was talking about AIPAC, which is the Jewish lobby, as being monsters. And I was trying to read how he meant monsters, and it was like going around and around and around about it. And so here it goes. So this is because Madami's obviously a member of a different group, right? He's Muslim, right? He's also socialist, and then there's a lot of your Jewish people who support Israel deeply. As a rule, they tend to be right wing right now, and they tend to be, I guess, they're all over the place. But you can see how they're definitely memberships of two different groups. So they're gonna fight each other. They're gonna oppose each other. And here you got this weird Roman Catholic over here, like looking at both of them, going, I don't know what to do. Because I've definitely wanted to be Jewish in my life. I had a YouTube video where I said that, and I've definitely wanted to be Muslim. I've wanted to be part of every group I've ever seen. You know what I'm saying? That's an old YouTube video where I talked about that theme, some 30 videos ago. Not that many people watch these videos, but it is what it is. I'm going to put them up, but I'm never going to take them down. I'm going to honor a promise I made to someone, never to take my videos down. There they are. That's what this guy was thinking on June 23rd, 2026, a 55-year-old guy like me. That's what I was thinking at that time, under all these different various influences and thoughts. What I wanted to say about Trump and Iran, I wanted to say something deep here, and I've been really trying to think about it. And, let me say it as straight as I can, without mincing any words. Trump was, we all know I hate Trump. I'm a Trump hater. It goes all the way back to the birth certificate of Obama, and he's never apologized for it. So he's, from there on out. You don't start by stepping on somebody's foot and then act like it never happened. You know what I mean? You got to apologize, and he never did. So he's already persona non grata to me. Okay, but forget all that for the time being. Let's look at the second election of Trump to the presidency like a baptism. He's been washed clean of his sins. He's the new president. Let's see what he does, right? Right off the bat, he does a whole bunch of things I hate. But let's look at the foreign policy issues. You had what he did in Venezuela. That seems to have been extremely successful. There was the killing of the people in the boats. And there'll be an investigation, and we'll learn what was going on there. Maybe there's some secret information we don't know, and I don't know, but we'll get to it. Might have been a war crime. And if so, I hope some people pay. It was very successful there. So I guess what I'm trying to say is he then goes and he takes a shot at Iran. And maybe he's going to be successful there too, and wouldn't that be great? It's starting to look like he wasn't successful. He failed in Iran. And that's too bad. I don't want to say, see, he's an idiot, because, other people could have taken shots and failed. I mean, an example would have been, Joe Biden with Afghanistan. He took a shot and it failed. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we're going to withdraw and let you support your own country. Oh, my God, they fell apart. Maybe you knew it was going to happen. Maybe you didn't. These kinds of things happen, right? And I don't want to blame them too fast. But the thing that worries me is like really thinking about the future of the geopolitical situation there. And what's starting to worry me is that Iran is going to be severely emboldened, and maybe they're going to discover just how powerful they really are, and that's a fear, and that I remember a long time ago talking to a Jewish lady. I was saying, at some point Israel's biggest problem is going to be the fact that America will sell them out for oil. I remember saying that to somebody 26 years ago, 25 years ago, something like that. And here we are. I might wind up being right. And I just want to point that out. It's not for any reasons of self-aggrandizement. I'm just worried that given that we did what we did to Iran, the way I think about it, given that we did what we did to Iran, the way I think about it, you got to put boots on the ground. You got to attack. And what he's doing is capitulating. And, oh, geez. Everything's a bad decision now. So I don't want to hate on the decision that Trump is making to act like there's a deal when the deal winds up being terrible. Sit here doing these roundhouse kicks to his face. You're giving him $300 billion and you're doing this and you're doing that, like a lot of the Democrats are doing. And rightly so. I mean, it's time to win elections and you gotta say stuff you gotta say. But in the interest of truth, I'm just, in the interest of truth, it's too bad that it didn't work out. It's too bad that he took a shot at getting rid of the horrible government of Iran and liberating the people from their grip. He took a shot at it and he failed. And now we're in the situation we're in. And so, Cuba. I've heard good things about Cuba, so hopefully we can get away from Iran, watch Iran get more powerful, just like we're watching the North Koreans get more powerful. We sit there and just keep staring at them going, okay, pal, you're the one of the big boys on the block now. Good luck. Enjoy. Because they get too pushy. I don't know. Eventually, hopefully, this world figures out and humanity figures out, and the next generation of kids and the kids after this, we figure out how to move this world forward without having to have war anymore. I think it is possible. And I think that the tools that we have, the information technology that we have, can get us to that sweet spot where maybe war never more, thinking about the politics of the future. It's like, I wish I could be more effective. I can't. So I'm still like, I know the things I'm saying half the time. I'm just talking out the side of my unit, my derriere, I guess. But it's still just the simple, when you put it all together in your mind and you ruminate over it and you keep thinking and you try to be objective and you get away from your subjective feelings. So I'm never going to make any money with my philosophy. I'm never going to make, but if I chased after clicks or likes or money or whatever it was, then I wouldn't focus on what I'm really, really, really thinking. And so I have to focus on what I'm really, really, really thinking in exclusion to getting. It's like I'm sabotaging my desire to be successful with any of this. Just go work my 2 jobs, and when I have a chance, my thinking finally comes out, in these videos and on my TikTok lives. But, what am I saying? The future, we need to create a political movement, a religious movement, a philosophical movement that takes the best of capitalism, the best of socialism, and the best of religion and combines it into a movement that moves forward. And so I'd like to think about what is the best of capitalism. The best of capitalism is people having the autonomy, the king-like power to make decisions, do whatever they want to do with the wealth that they have. That unlocks full human potential. Some brilliant person thinks, let's do this. And who's to tell them they can't? Within the limits of the rules and the laws, nobody can tell you what to do with your warehouses and your forklifts. Nobody can tell you what to do with your computers. And so you figure out new systems, and that's the best of capitalism. Human freedom. Expressing itself in great engineering ideas and making genuine value for the society because of it, and then taking, some of that value so you can keep on going. Providing jobs for people like me. Because I'm not going to sit around and try to figure out how to run a restaurant or how to do something of value, beyond my classroom and beyond, the things I do with my life. And so it's not me. I couldn't, if I was busy trying to run a company, could I think about the philosophy that I want to think about? Could I think about the policy? I can't. So that's the reason why I got to focus on what I do while they focus on what they do. So that's the best of capitalism. What's the worst of capitalism? Well, we know what that is. It's just like obscene amounts of wealth being spent in the most ridiculous ways by super rich people. They have obscene amounts of wealth. They have extremely young, spouses because they're rich. They have, and it's their fourth spouse at this point, and they have these super yachts, and they're spending just money hands over fist doing things that are useless. The image that we get from the media, Warren Buffett never did that. That's the image we get. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but the guy apparently, never took more, he drove him, from the documentary I saw, he drove himself to work in the morning and got McDonald's on the way and had exact change in his glove compartment. I mean, that's the best of capitalism. The worst of capitalism is someone who goes off, makes their millions, I suppose, funding opioids, pornography, and weapons, and they spend all their money just on themselves, and they don't care about, they try to maximize the value they get out of their workers. That's the worst of capitalism. And then they use that money to corrupt, Congress people in a legal corruption, meaning like they corrupt them by tell them do this and we'll give you this money and so that you can get reelected. That's totally legitimate. There's nothing wrong with that in an ultimate sense. If somebody's going to advocate for the lumber industry, then the lumber industry is going to give that guy money for their reelection campaign. That's just fine. That's nothing wrong with that. But there's some level where it obviously becomes corrupt and wrong, even though it's legal. That's the worst of capitalism. The best of socialism is recognizing that everyone is contributing in a major way to the human collective. Some nurse who's taking care of 5 older people in a old folks home, and the older people that don't have any money left, and they're just getting money from their Social Security checks and maybe a couple of pension checks, and they're very old and their family rarely comes to visit them. And this nurse does everything that the nurse can do, he or she, taking care of these elderly patients on this hallway. They're never going to get rich because these people aren't rich. Nobody sees the work that they do, but the work they do is obviously for the human good, and they deserve to get paid accordingly. And yet they're not able to get paid accordingly because, the society is structured in such a way as they diminish the value of the work that they do. Socialism doesn't allow for that. That's the best of socialism. It figures out a way to pay people for the work that they do. They don't need to have 3 income streams. They do good work that's important. They get paid accordingly. They can pay their bills. They can go on vacation from time to time. They can pay for the things that they need. Well, the worst of socialism is well understood to be after you, like the Cuban Revolution, after you take value from everyone because you correct the way money is being distributed. You take value from everyone and you just keep it for your own selves and your own political party, and then everything gets decided by the central party, and it's and then the freedom of entrepreneurs to just make decisions without talking to you is limited, and then everything is concentrated to power, and it just basically becomes the super rich just become the people who are in control of the communist revolution, right? And that's the worst of socialism, the worst of communism. The best of religion is in my opinion, in Christianity. I'm sure in Islam and Judaism as well, but in Christianity you have, and other religions, the ability to, the need for sacrificing yourself for a greater good. You know what I mean? And that's evolutionarily, we can see that some groups probably thrived because the beta male was out there always letting the alpha male rule, but they were taking care of the important stuff that needed to get done so that the group would be successful. you know? And so the religion teaches people, the good religion teaches people to be self-sacrificial for the group. And that's the best of religion. The worst of religion is insisting that you believe on things that are false. And that's evidently happening because between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam by themselves, there's plenty of contradiction there. So somebody's demanding that you believe in something that's false somewhere. You're not one of us unless, the best way I deal with that one is remember to separate your loyalties from your search for truth. I'm loyal. I know I'm loyal to the Catholic Church. I know I'm loyal to America. I know I'm loyal to my Irish people and my German people, right? German Lutheran people, I guess, right? It's my father's family. Loyal to Pennsylvania, right? Loyal to Philadelphia. That's the worst of religion, just believing in things, being forced to believe in things are false and making it a loyalty test. You must, in your heart, believe that 2 + 2 = 5. This is the big brother, right? And you must believe it. You can't just say 2 + 2 = 5. You have to believe it. So it's taking the best of these things. The redistribution of wealth, appropriate amounts of the redistribution of wealth, which, by the way, is in the Bible, Leviticus 25:10. The best, where suddenly there is a moment of jubilee where you give things back to who it used to belong to. And the best of capitalism is unlocking that freedom, and that freedom gets unlocked for people who already have command of a tremendous amount of resources in society, but they continue to control that resource because they have the freedom to make some way to bring these three things together. And, universal basic income is obviously a way to achieve it. You bring that on slowly. I've talked about that one before. And with universal basic income is the method that you would use to also bring about reparations for all past injustices. And maybe even, as some people have pointed out, to bring back, what this one right-wing asshole once said, reverse reparations for people who did tremendous good in the past and never got to get anything. So sort of like if you could show you're a descendant of William Lloyd Garrison, maybe you deserve a little bit of a reparation package for yourself, right? It's kind of an interesting thought. Yeah, I mean, it's just the best of it. You bring out the best of these ideas and then bring them together. We need really good historians. And the process of history is extremely important because we need to look at the past squarely and decide where there was injustice and decide where there wasn't. Every small step could have been a small step of what was good and just, what was good and just, what was good and just, what was good and just. Then you stick back and you take a look at the overall picture and there was an injustice here. Look at the outcome. Life is hard. It's just tough stuff. There's some kind of statistical concept that I learned in statistics class, one of my many statistics classes, where I'm trying to remember what that was. Every step along the way, everything was done properly, but when you look at it after the fact, it seems like there was an injustice done. Many things are like that in this world, and I guess I'm specifically thinking about the English conquest of North America. Justice is hard business, but justice is definitely something we need to consider. All of it's important. Don't let go of any part of it. So my mind is going to try to, what I hope to do next, I started writing it, what I hope to do next is start working on other models of reality. I need to steelman the other arguments. I need to go through very carefully and say to myself, maybe God has communicated to someone. Maybe God has communicated to people. Maybe there aren't multi-universes. Maybe there, things like that. And start working through the possibility of the existence of a spiritual realm angels, demons, other spirits, ghosts, and work out other possible systems of reality. A system of reality where there's the archangel Michael and a devil. I think after you're done, I'm positive that when I'm done this process of trying to work myself through other possible versions of reality, I'm positive I'm going to land right back where I'm at, which is, like I've told before, like I talked about in God's Reality Across the Godiverse, that video. The whole idea of, I hold axiomatically that there is a God, that he doesn't know the futures of this world. Whether or not you should worship or pray to this God, not particularly relevant. I don't think you need to. I think that's the ultimate truth. Doesn't mean that going to church isn't bad. I mean, church has been proven to be good for us. So go to church, I suppose it's been proven. When I think about God, it usually just makes me think about other people, and I just get more inspired to be a good person. That's fine. There's this concept of God in my mind, but the concept of God in my mind, sort of like, Anselm. This concept of God in my mind is surely not the actual God that's outside of this reality. Now, who knows just how powerful and how all-knowing and just how incredible that being is? You know what I mean? I mean, you can brainwash me like the Muslims do and make me go, he is merciful, he's beneficial, he's this, he's that, he's this, he's that. The 99 names for God or whatever it was. I mean, you can force me to go through all those names, but it's like, no. Because I think that the existence of God, because it's this simple. There's either a God or there's not, and then there's murkiness in between in the idea that there is a God, but he has different characteristics. Not all loving, he's not all powerful, or he's not this, or he's not that, or she, there is no God, but there is this being that kind of is like God. So there's those possibilities, but between this, there is a God outside this reality, or there is not a God. It's either one or the other, and I am convinced you can't know. I'm absolutely convinced you can't know. You have to accept an axiom here. This is what that monkey boy guy on TikTok Live is missing, right? He's missing that point. There has to be an axiom. So it's either God exists or God doesn't. And if God exists, that doesn't mean that you have to believe in the Bible or the Torah or the Quran or any of that stuff. It doesn't mean any of that. Throw all that stuff out. You know what I mean? But it's one or the other. And you don't, and yes, you have three choices. You don't have to choose. Make a choice when you don't choose, right? Or you choose one or you choose the other. I think it's obviously in our best interest. Whoa, I lost my little thing there. I think it's obviously in our best interest to believe in the existence of an all-loving God. And recognize the theodicy that I offer of, well, if God's so all-loving, how come there's all this evil and pain in this world? That closer to the truth guy makes me laugh. He makes me laugh so hard because he brought that one guy on. The closer to the truth guy brought that one guy on and says, like, one of the arguments that Christianity makes is the idea that change the way the headphones work by touching something there. That whatever evil happens in this world, God's able to draw a greater good because of that evil. It's like this one guy made such mincemeat out of that argument. It made me laugh. No, I think that God has only two choices about this world. He either turns it off or lets it play itself out. And when people suffer completely unjust sufferings, a very good person just suddenly has a car crash and dies. A very good person just suddenly develops cancer. You know what I mean? A very evil person suddenly has even more money and more fun, and more no working while other people are slaving themselves for them. All this, and everyone's trying to say, well, the God works in mysterious ways. No, I think we know exactly how God works. He's not doing anything about it. He's just letting it happen. But because he has to do it that way, Look at the history of the creation from 13.8 billion years ago to Luca, last universal common ancestor, 4 billion years ago, to the development, the evolutionary development of all life on Earth, eventually leading to primates like us 150,000 years ago, and then us coming to our modern form. He's watching this at every step along the way. We always had to kill to live. We always had to run from snakes to not get bit. We always had this problem. We always had this streak of cruelty into us that helped to protect us from being attacked, because if we're cruel, we don't get attacked. I mean, it's like that's what we are. But we can choose what we're going to become. And that's when it's time to focus and think about good science fiction. It's time to focus and think about what we want to choose for ourselves. So I really do believe, and I encourage everyone out there, it's like, go ahead and embrace Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior, because honestly, that's approximately what you really have to do. Something like it. And it's very close to that. To visualize this really good person in your mind and try to be like that very good person. Bing! That's what you're supposed to try to do. Know thyself from ancient Greece. Understand what you are. Study the brain. I'm thinking about my son who's going to go study neuroscience. I'm so proud of him. You know what I mean? Understand how your brain works, why you have two hemispheres, what's going on up there, why do you dream, why do you all this? Understand yourself. And then broadly speaking, know that there's good decisions, bad decisions, and decisions you can't know are for good or bad. Broadly speaking, always try to do good choices. There's always category error. Once you make categories, you're always going to have category error. But we need categories to be able to think. So in summary, this is where I'm at. Happy summertime. Going to go ahead and work on, I suppose, other possible models of reality. But right now, at this moment, after just going through all this, I'm just so sure. I'm like, I found the correct position to have. You can sit here. I know that you can't know either way about God. You don't know. You can't know. You don't know. You'll never know. You know what I'm saying? But you can make a choice. And then, an update as you get more evidence. And I already suspect, I can already see in my mind's eye and in my imagination all the evidence that you're ever going to be able to collect. And all the evidence you're ever going to be able to collect, you're still going to land in a position like some mathematician working on the Goldbach conjecture. You're not going to solve the problem. You're never going to know if God's there or not. You can seek him with all your heart. You will not find him. You can think you will think sometimes that you found him, but you will have been fooling yourself. But belief in God and searching for him while you're doing other good things because of that search for God is a totally worthy process. Go to church, meet your spouse there. You know what I mean? These things are obviously good for us. Yeah.